Good afternoon and welcome to Business Relationships Matter Network. And I'm delighted to introduce Kim Willis of Willis Marketing as our spotlight speaker today. Kim is going to tell us the storytelling is the sales glory. Give us the glory from our sales. He started his sales career at the age of 18, and I can't imagine starting my career at the age of 18, but he was doing that. Storytelling is one of Kim's key ingredients of genius, and storytelling isn't only a success factor, but without it, your progress is likely to be slower. Take on board his message and some of his ideas and incorporate them as soon as you can.
Storytelling for fun and profit. We all love to have fun, and we like to make money as well. So why not combine the two? That's my attitude. Photos. Let's get into the number one. How I made my first sale from telling a story. Who was the hero in your story? Don't forget the villain. Every good story has a villain. Story-based testimonials are a superior alternative to standard testimonials. Because most people have testimonials. If they've been in business for a year or two or three, they've got testimonials and they put them on their website and elsewhere, social media, etc. But often the testimonials aren't that exciting. So I've developed a way to enhance them. Why most case studies don't work, a better way. Not everybody has case studies, and certainly many of the case studies I see are pretty ordinary. They really don't resonate on an emotional level. It's just facts and figures and all that. And that doesn't, there's no emotional connection there. And without an emotional connection, people are not going to take the next step. And number 6 is just a point. I could leave it at that right now because I'm not going to create a lesson out of that. Just saying that if you really buy into this whole storytelling ethos way of thinking, don't think it's just for marketing and sales. Apply it to other areas of your business, such as your origin story, team story. A lot of people, especially in Australia, a lot of founders and people like that are complaining that it's hard to get good staff and hard to retain them. So I would say if that's the situation, you need an employer brand as well as kind of a marketing brand. You as a thought leader. So there's lots of ways that storytelling can manifest. All right. How I made my first sale from telling a story. Well, it started when I met this guy here, Pastor Stan. Photo's a little bit blurry, nothing much I can do about that, but Pastor Stan Rex, Sydney, Australia. I was looking for a job. I was about 18. And I heard about this guy, Stan Rex. He was a pastor, minister of religion in my church, the church that I was involved with at that time. I'm no longer involved. It was a Seventh-day Adventist church. Some say it's a bit of a sect. I don't care. I joined it because I liked their health message and a few other things that they said seemed to make sense to me. I was only 18. So anyway, I met this guy, but as a sideline, he was running the book division for the church in Strathfield in Sydney, right? And I was referred to him, go and talk to Stan, he might give you a job. That's what happened. Gave me a job, gave me some training for a week. And in the office there with a few other new recruits. And then Monday morning I was to go out and knock on doors, which is exactly what I did. The following Monday, knocked on doors, knock, 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 hello, hello. I was terrified, of course, because I'm very shy. I was terrified, and I don't know, it took about half an hour for somebody to let me in, and sat down. I had my little presentation thing there, and sat down and showed them, something called The Modern Ways to Health. It's a 2-volume book set. Okay, health message. That was the thing. So didn't make a sale. Same thing happened 15 minutes later when I went into another house, and then another house, didn't make any sales. And this pattern repeated right through till Friday. And Friday was D-Day for me, because by then I was so demotivated and so despondent that I vowed that when I called into the office there to report my results for the week, I was going to tell Pastor Stan, that I'm quitting. and which is exactly what I did. I told him I was quitting, and he said, okay, look, before you quit, I recall last week when we did the formal training that you shared a story that your mum said you should try your hand at sales because you're terribly shy and it'll make you tougher. I said, yeah, she said that, and I did share that story. I said, well, if it's true what you're saying, I say give it another week and see what happens. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do, a big favor for you. I'm going to meet you on Monday morning and we'll go out together. And that's exactly what happened. Now, when he suggested that, I was terrified because something I didn't tell you, he was the #1 seller of these books in the world. He even beat the Americans at their own game. He was phenomenal, a force of nature, you might say. So I was terrified that he was going to come out with me. But anyway, he did. He didn't say anything. He just took notes. And so we got into a house and did the presentation. And once again, no sale. And he said, okay, well, let's just keep walking and knock on a few more doors and see what happens. Same thing. Got into a house maybe half an hour later. I can't remember. And after that, he said, look, I don't think we'll do any more. I got the picture here. Let's go and have an orange juice and a veggie burger at McDonald's, right? Because the health message, vegetarians and all that. I'm no longer a vegetarian. I'm a carnivore. But nevertheless, that's what we did. And he just said to me, we sat down and he said, okay, I'm going to throw it to you before I share my notes with you because I've taken notes. And he said, you tell me, what, based on what you did today, is that more or less typical and representative of what you normally do? And I said, yeah, even though I was really nervous, I tried to stay true to how I've been doing it since last week. And he said, okay. He said, is there anything that you would critique, anything that stands out that you'd like to do better? And I said, well, I wasn't asking questions much. And when I didn't ask them with confidence. I really felt that. And he said, okay, why is that? Why didn't you ask the questions or you didn't ask them well? I said, because I was scared of rejection, because I was scared of the silence. He said, okay, well, I've heard that one before from other people. What else did you notice about your performance, your presentation? I said, I wasn't hardly shared any stories. And when I did, they were the wrong stories for that situation. He said, okay, well, here's my notepad. Let me show you. What do you see there? Whoops. He wrote down exactly the same thing. So we spent some more time with me, and he said, okay, well, don't do any more work today. It's Monday, it's lunchtime. Go home, rehearse in front of the mirror. If you've got a recording device, do that, and then go out again on Tuesday. You prepared to do that? And I said, yes, I will. I'm feeling more invigorated now after talking with you. So I knocked on the doors the next day. Once again, no sales, but this time I was feeling more confident. I had more resolve and self-belief. So I went into Wednesday, knocking on doors, and finally I made a sale. It's the first sale I've ever made in my life. And it was because of the questioning, listening to the answers, etc., and the storytelling. This time I told the right stories for the right situation, and I told them with conviction. Didn't make any sales on Thursday, but I made another one on Friday. So that was 2 sales, 2 more sales than I made in that week than I made in the previous week. So there's a little story about how I got started. Now, who was the hero in your story? Think about your own storytelling. If we're talking storytelling for business, every good story, you need to have a hero and you need to have a villain. Who is the hero in your story, whether it's your brand story, whether it's a customer story, your backstory, your founder story? Who is the hero? Well, if it's a customer story, probably say it's not going to be you, right? Just think about that. And it's probably not going to be this guy. It's probably not going to be this guy. There's a really funny story. I don't know if anybody remembers that guy. It depends on your age, I guess. But his name is David Cassidy. And I had firsthand with my wife, and not long being married, we went to America. We stayed at the Ambassador Hotel in LA. And at the restaurant, the chef was getting ready to go home. We were just finishing our meal, and in this guy walks. There's an incredible story around that, but I'll just say this. They refused him. They wouldn't let him in. They say, no, the chef is going home. He's got some family problems. He's going, what? You kidding me? Do you know who I am? Famous last words. And the response from the waitress was, no, I'm sorry, sir. I don't know who you are. I'm David Cassidy. Astonishing. What about this guy? Is he your hero? Maybe not. This is your hero. For a customer story, you want just someone that people relate to, a real everyday kind of people. They got a good result, with your service or product or whatever. That's what you need. You need a hero customer. That's it. And the customer becomes the focal point of your story. But you also need a villain. Now, it may not be this guy. This is Jack Nicholson in a movie called The Shining, 30 plus years ago, right? You don't want to hit a villain like that. The type of villain that I'm thinking about is not necessarily a person, because if you're going to write a story, you don't want to be naming names and all that. You're going to get some nasty. It could become litigious. I prefer to focus on bad practices, the status quo. Like, let's say you've got a superior way of doing business, you've got a wonderful process, you've perfected it, etc., whatever it is. Okay, and you've got to be in your bonnet about some of the competition and the practices that they undertake. That becomes your enemy. It's those practices, or outdated. I'm not saying they're thieves or crooks or anything like that. It may just be that they're outdated practices, that they don't work anymore. The status quo doesn't cut it anymore. And this is exactly where we're at the moment, with so much change, radical change. We've got to shake up the way we do things, and it'll be the leaders, the innovators, that are going to make the money. Whereas the old guard, they just continue on doing what they're doing, complaining, and nothing really changes. So that, for me, that would kind of be the enemy, right? That's the villain, right? Doesn't have to be a person. Story-based testimonials. I could spend half an hour on this, but I'll just say that a lot of testimonials seem to be very formulaic, and they're mainly consists of happy customers, talking about the result. But that's understandable, because the customer is excited that they had got their problem solved. They got a beautiful new bathroom installed after talking to a lot of other, installers, and weren't happy with them. Or, they got a tax refund that was twice as much as they got the year before thanks to their accountant. Whatever it is, they talk about the end result, because that's what customers do. Happy customers. But the buyer, the intending buyer, who's in search mode, who has a problem, has pain, they can't always identify with that result. Half of them don't even believe it's true, right? So what we need to do is move more towards pain and problems, and talk about those. But the problem is that your customer who wants to give you a testimonial, all they want to talk about is a wonderful result and the wonderful experience they had with you. Okay, but that's not where the buyer is, who's in a different stage in their journey. So what we do is we create what I call enhanced testimonials. So you see the highlighted bits there in dark. They're the actual words that the customer said. But we interviewed the customer. We didn't even need to do for this one. We didn't need to do a phone call or anything like that. This is before Zoom, etc. We just did it via email. Asked them some questions, they gave us the answers, and then from there we could create some editorial, but a good headline as well. A lot of testimonials don't have headlines, and they don't have photos of the testimonials. It doesn't. You can do them yourself if you know what you're doing. Obviously, we can do them, but it doesn't take that long. We can put them together in a few hours. It's not very expensive to do. If you've got a bunch of testimonials, upgrade them. You don't have to do it to all of them, but maybe 3, something like that. Now, case studies. Why most case studies don't work? Well, a lot of them are like tombstones. They don't say much and are quickly forgotten. Now, it's okay for the dearly departed, but of zero use to the living. Now, in this age, people are very skeptical, hard to trust, etc. Trust issues. Buyers want to know why they should do business with you, and they want more than just simple summary of the problem and a simple summary of the solution and then some data, right? This result, XYZ result, blah, 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 include a bit of data, that's it. Doesn't emotionally move people. This is especially true for B2B service providers. So people want something that resonates on a logical and an emotional level. Can't just be all logic, because most people are not responsive to logic alone. Anyone can quote data, facts and figures, but that won't move people to take action. But pressing the emotional hot button will. Now, slick case studies are a turn off. They're written in the vendor's voice, always from the seller's perspective. And that when I see that, and I'd say 80 to 90% of case studies that I look at, they're written in the vendor's voice. And that's mainly because the person who wrote the case study never spoke to the customer, the actual customer, right? They never spoke to them. They never interviewed them. They never dug deep and find out what the real issues were. So to fix the problem, you must write from the customer's point of view. So that means no perfect experience. Talk about the struggle instead. Instead of we doubled sales in 90 days or whatever the data-led result was, try this. 3 sick employees, but we delivered for our customer. On time, no fuss, here is how. Now, I think you'll agree that that will attract a lot more attention than your typical, oh, you know, I helped this customer increase their sales by 50% this year, or cut costs by 25%, blah, blah, blah. It's part of the story, but it's not the one that'll, you know, attract them, that'll entice them into the full story. Failure and setbacks happen in every business, so don't hide from it. It's like you've got a nice car, but you know, it's past its use by date, you'd like to sell it, you'd like to buy the new version, and you see if you can sell it privately. Show a few little problems about the car is much more likely to lead to a sale. You know that? You've heard that before? Don't say the car is perfect. It's 3 years old. There's probably going to be a few problems with it. Just share it. You'll be it's much more credible. Trust will be built, and you'll probably sell it. No problems at all. So the same with your case studies with some of your customers. Failure and setbacks happen in every business, so don't hide from it. Your prospects aren't looking for perfection. They know that, you know, sometimes you have staffing problems and you can't finish the job today. All right, so feature these kinds of stories or experience, anecdotes, etc. Put them into your story. People are looking for someone who won't fall apart when things go wrong. It's a test of character, your business's character as well. So don't treat failure like a footnote. Treat it like your competitive advantage instead. Then your prospects stop seeing you as another supplier making empty promises that your intending customers probably don't believe. Make it real, make it authentic. Now, I know this is a kind of a radical approach for some people who are used to the traditional way of, you know, the truth-telling, customer story methodologies, case studies, etc. But I guarantee you, if this is done well, you'll get a much better response. Case studies, in my view, should be 80% problem, 20% solution. That's it. And then the final point is really more just a recommendation, right? Apply storytelling to other areas of your business, such as your origin story, team story, you as a thought leader story, different aspects of your business. Even on the operational side, you can create some storytelling magic about how you solve this problem through more efficient processes, etc.
Thank you, Kim. I really appreciate you taking the time to put that presentation together. Really interesting going out selling books door to door at the age of 18. Man, that was really tough. But I really like that. I made a couple of notes there. You know, like the case studies don't always work, and the 80-20 rule you just quoted there. You know, like 80% problem, 20% solution. The storytelling is not just for marketing; it's for all parts. And you mentioned about being an employer, which is really great.
Oh yeah,
and
that's a big one.
And relate your stories to the buyer's pain. You can have the stories, but make sure you tell the right story. That's a trick. It's a very good trick. So thank you so much for being our Spotlight Speaking for the week.